My name is Thomas Avery. I'm 67, retired, and I live alone in a modest two-bedroom house just outside of Portland, Oregon. I was an architect, mostly small residential projects, nothing flashy. Clean lines, natural light, practical layouts. That was my thing. I liked balance, predictability. My clients appreciated that. So did Margaret at first. We met in 1981 at a community design forum for a local school expansion. She was a high school counselor then, with strong opinions about stairwell safety and how daylight affected teenage moods. I found her conviction charming. She thought my sketches were too conservative. We argued for an hour over hallway widths and ended the evening with coffee. That was how it began. Argument, coffee, laughter. It became our rhythm. We married in 1984, bought a fixer-upper on Hawthorne, worked on it room by room. She picked the colors. I handled the structure. She taught me the difference between linen white and eggshell. I taught her how to hang drywall. We laughed a lot in those days. There was music on all the time. Joni Mitchell, Paul Simon, even Fleetwood Mac when we were feeling nostalgic. We had one child, Lily, born in '88. Sharp kid, always drawing or building things out of shoeboxes and tape. She got my precision and Margaret's fire. We used to sit on the floor, all three of us, playing Scrabble on Sunday nights with bowls of popcorn and mugs of peppermint tea. Lily moved to Seattle 10 years ago, started her own design studio, comes down a few times a year. She worries about me. I tell her not to. Margaret and I had routines. Morning coffee at the same time, silent but comfortable. Friday grocery runs, walks around Laurelhurst Park on Sundays. We had his and her mugs, a garden bed she loved, a crossword habit I pretended not to share but always helped her finish. We weren't romantic in the movie sense, but we were steady. At least, I thought so. I started noticing the small things about 4 years ago. Not dramatic, just a different tone in her voice when I asked if she wanted tea. A pause before saying my name. She began taking longer walks, often alone. Started going to more book clubs, then different ones, then ones she didn't name at all. She stopped humming while cooking. Our bedroom changed, too. She claimed she was tired, cold, busy, always turned away from me at night. At first I thought it was age, hormones, maybe sadness she didn't want to name. I asked her once, gently, if she was okay. She said, "I'm fine, Tom. Don't start." And then she stopped using we in her sentences. It was all I and me and my schedule. One night, while folding laundry, she said she might go visit her sister in Santa Fe for a while. No reason given. Just a thought. Like she was floating trial balloons, testing my reaction. I didn't react, just nodded. Said, "Sounds nice." A month later, she booked the flight. That first week alone, I didn't sleep much. The house made different sounds. Her absence was louder than her presence ever was. I kept making too much coffee, folded the laundry out of habit, then realized it was only my socks and shirts. I still set out 2 plates at dinner. She stayed gone for 3 weeks, sent a few texts, a photo of desert hills, 1-word replies to my check-ins. When she came back, she was distant in a new way. Peaceful, almost. She walked past me when she got home, said she was tired from the flight. Didn't ask how I was. She took her suitcase directly to the guest room. I didn't ask why. I didn't push. I just kept doing what I did best. Making coffee at 6:30, replacing light bulbs, reading the paper, waiting. One night, maybe 2 months after her return, I found her sitting in the dark kitchen. Just the light from the fridge on her face. She didn't flinch when I entered, just looked at me and said, "Do you ever feel like you've outgrown your own life?" I didn't know what to say. I think I just stood there, holding the glass I came in for. She didn't elaborate. After a minute, she stood, kissed my cheek, and went back to the guest room. I stood in that kitchen for a long time, staring at the fridge, trying to remember the last time we had laughed. The kitchen clock clicked softly. 6:42 p.m. The roast had been resting for 20 minutes under foil, untouched. I turned the oven off, though I doubted Margaret even noticed it was still on. She wasn't home. Again. At first, it had been occasional. A late yoga session, a book club that always ran long. Then, 3 nights in a row, the garage door creaked open just after 9, headlights flashing across the living room wall before they dimmed. Her silhouette would pause at the doorway, keys in hand, then pass without a word to the guest room. A muttered good night, sometimes not even that. She didn't smell of wine. Her clothes weren't ruffled, no lipstick on the collar, nothing cinematic. But she was different. Lighter, somehow, as if the space around her had shifted. I didn't ask, not once. Instead, I started noticing things. Her favorite mug in the dishwasher, even though I hadn't seen her use it that day. The faint scent of patchouli on her scarf, a fragrance I hadn't smelled on her in over a decade. A receipt left on the hall table, hastily crumpled, for 2 cappuccinos at a place in Old Town she always said was too trendy. One evening, I stayed in my study longer than usual. No music, no lamp, just the creak of the leather chair and the faint ticking of the radiator. From down the hall, I heard her laughter. Soft, unguarded, from behind the closed door of the guest room. A pause. Then again, fainter. Then silence. Later that night, when she had already turned in, I walked past the guest room and caught a glimpse. Her phone face down on the bed, charging cord curled like a snake beside it. A folded napkin on the nightstand with a name scribbled on it in sharp black ink. The handwriting wasn't hers. I didn't touch it. Next morning, it was gone. The following Tuesday, I pretended to be asleep when she left. Her heels clicked softly down the hall. The front door opened and shut without a creak. I waited a full 10 minutes before getting up. No lights were on, but the kitchen smelled faintly of cinnamon and clove. She had made tea, chamomile, only 1 cup. Her scarf was gone from the hook. I sat at the kitchen table, the one with the burn mark from the candle Lily knocked over at 14. The house was so quiet, it felt suspended in time. I glanced at the clock. 8:09 p.m. On the counter, her notebook lay half open, a shopping list on the top page. But underneath, a slip of hotel stationery was tucked barely out of sight. I slid it out slowly. No address, just a phone number and a short note. Tuesday nights are better, less watched. M double quote. My first instinct was not jealousy. It was stillness. The same kind you feel when a bird flies into a closed window and the room just stops. I put it back exactly where I found it. That Friday, Lily called. Her voice sounded distant, pixelated with digital static. She asked if everything was okay. Sure, I said. We're fine. You sound tired, she said. I've been working in the garden. It was mid-February. The soil was frozen. That night I noticed Margaret hadn't worn her wedding ring in over a week. I wasn't sure how I missed it. Maybe because the indentation was still there. A pale circle on her finger that caught the bathroom light. She started bringing home flowers, not in bouquets, single stems, a daffodil, a blue iris, a tulip. She never explained them. Just put them in the glass bottle we used to keep near the sink for olive oil. Now it was a vase. We had dinner together once that week. Takeout. Thai. She ordered for both of us. I asked how the book club was. We haven't met in a while, she said. No further explanation. She chewed slowly, methodically, like she was somewhere else. Do you ever think about taking a trip? I asked. Just us. Like we used to. She wiped her mouth gently and looked past me. To where? Anywhere, I said. Doesn't matter. She didn't answer. Later that evening, I heard her laughing softly in the guest room again. I stood outside the door. I didn't knock. It was only laughter after all. The postcard arrived on a Tuesday. One of those glossy ones with a watercolor skyline of Seattle and a handwritten note from Lily that read, "Come see me, Dad." the guest room's waiting. It was tucked between a flyer for window cleaning and the electric bill. I stood by the kitchen counter, flipping it over twice before setting it down by the fruit bowl, next to the softening pears. I didn't mention it to Margaret. Not that she would have asked. Her phone was face down on the table again, the screen lighting up occasionally, like a lighthouse for a ship that never docks. She sat across from me, a bowl of soup untouched, her spoon drifting in slow circles. We hadn't spoken much that morning, or the day before, or the week before that. After dinner, she went upstairs early. I heard the creak of the floorboards, the familiar sequence. Hallway, then her door, then silence. I washed the dishes alone, careful with the wine glass she preferred. There was still lipstick on the rim. It was after 10 when I heard it, the muffled trill of a phone. Not mine, not the house line either. It came again, sharper this time, and then the hush of footsteps. I stepped out into the hallway just in time to see the sliver of her door close. Quietly, deliberately. I stood there, listening. No voices, just the low hum of something private. I don't know why I opened her door the next day. It was mid-morning. She'd gone out early. Groceries, she'd said, but the list was still on the fridge. I hesitated a moment, hand on the knob, then stepped in. Her room smelled faintly of lilacs and the kind of perfume she used to wear only on holidays. There was a scarf draped over the back of her chair, a book face down, spine cracked. But it was the drawer, second from the top, that caught me. Not because it was open, but because of what was inside, a folded photograph. Old, glossy, edges worn. It showed her and a man I didn't recognize. Taken years ago, she looked younger, sunburnt, smiling. He had his arm around her shoulders, and something about the way she leaned into him felt practiced, comfortable. The back of the photo had one line in faint ink, Santa Barbara, 1994. I replaced it exactly as I found it. That night I made grilled cheese and tomato soup. She ate without speaking. When she reached for the salt, her sleeve slipped and I saw a bracelet I hadn't noticed before. Silver, thin, unfamiliar. Lily called while I was doing the laundry. Her voice was warm, trying too hard to be light. "Did you get my card?" "Yes," I said. "It was nice." "You should come, even just for a few days." I didn't answer. She filled the silence with details about the weather, a new cafe she found, the book she was reading. When we hung up, I stared at the wall for a long time. Margaret stayed out late that Friday, said she was meeting Carol, but came home alone and didn't smell like wine or perfume. She didn't look tired either, just distracted. Like she had left a version of herself somewhere else and wasn't quite sure how to wear this one. In the linen closet behind the spare towels, I found a small box. Inside was a receipt, a boutique hotel downtown. Not last week, not the week before. It was from 3 days ago, paid in cash. I put it back, said nothing, washed my hands, scrubbed under my nails. When she asked if we were out of milk, I said yes, though the fridge was full. That night, I dreamed I was walking through a house I didn't recognize. The walls were covered in photos, but every frame was turned to face the wall. I could hear laughter, but couldn't find its source. In the morning, Margaret was already gone. The bed looked untouched. I checked the postcard again. Seattle, a guest room waiting. I still hadn't decided. Lily stood just past the security barrier, holding a paper cup with both hands like it was something sacred. I saw her before she saw me. She was scanning faces, shifting from side to side the way she used to when she was a kid waiting for the school bus. I didn't wave right away. I stood still, letting the crowd pass around me. When our eyes met, she smiled, not wide, a quiet, almost startled smile. She stepped forward and hugged me like I'd been gone much longer than I had. "You smell like home," she said. I didn't know how to respond. I just nodded and let her take my suitcase. Her apartment was on the 4th floor of a brick building with no elevator. She offered to carry the bag, but I waved her off. The stairs creaked. The hallway smelled like cumin and old varnish. Inside, everything was small and neat. There was a quilt on the couch, a row of books by the window, 2 mugs left to dry on the rack. It felt lived in. She made tea without asking. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said, not looking at me. I wasn't sure either. We sat with our cups between us. She kept glancing at me like she was measuring something. I took in the chipped table, the way the light pooled under the curtains. I didn't want to talk about Margaret. I didn't want to talk about anything, really. "Is it bad?" she asked quietly. I looked at her. She wasn't a child. Not anymore. "It's quiet," I said. "Quiet like peaceful or quiet like lonely?" I didn't answer. She didn't press. Just nodded and stirred her tea, though she hadn't added sugar. That night, she made soup. Lentils, carrots, rosemary. It tasted like something remembered. We didn't say much over dinner. She asked about the garden. I asked about her job. Her laugh was soft, like she was trying not to scare something away. I slept in the spare room. The sheets smelled like lavender. There was a photograph on the dresser, Lily and Margaret on a pier, sun in their hair, both holding ice cream. It looked like a different life. In the morning, I watched her get ready for work. She moved quickly, pulling her hair back, slipping into shoes at the door. Before she left, she paused. "You can stay as long as you want." "I know. I mean it. I know." After she left, the apartment felt hollow in a way that was different from the house. Not empty, just waiting. I stood by the window for a long time, watching the street below. A dog tugged its owner across the intersection. A man in a gray hoodie smoked on the curb. Life went on. That afternoon, we walked by the waterfront. Lily showed me her favorite bench. We sat, facing the water. Boats drifted in the distance. She was the one who broke the silence. "I don't think she's coming back," she said. "I'm not sure she ever left." Lily turned to look at me. "You know what I mean?" I nodded. "She's not the same, Dad." "Neither am I." A long pause. Seagulls called above us. "Does she know you're here?" I shook my head. "Do you want her to?" "I don't know." Another silence. Lily leaned back, crossing her arms. "I hate watching you disappear like this," she said, "like you're erasing yourself piece by piece." "I'm not disappearing." "It feels like you are." Back at the apartment, she handed me a key. "Just in case," she said. That night, I sat alone in the living room while she graded papers in the bedroom. The hum of the city filtered through the glass. I thought about the house, the sound of Margaret moving in the kitchen, the way her footsteps had changed over the years. I'd always believed silence was safety, that not naming something made it less real, but the silence in that house had grown teeth. Lily came out around 10, barefoot, hair down. "Do you want to talk about it?" "There's not much to say." "Then say it anyway." I stared at the mug in my hands. The ceramic was warm, smooth. "Something's wrong," I said. She nodded. "I don't need proof. I don't need answers. I just know." Lily sat beside me, folding her legs under her. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." She didn't offer solutions, just sat there, a quiet presence, a small lighthouse. I left 2 days later. She hugged me tighter than when I arrived. "Call me, okay?" "I will." The flight was short, but my thoughts stretched long. Back home, the door creaked the same way. The coat I left on the rack was still there. Margaret wasn't. A note on the fridge said she was at a late dinner with friends. No names, no time. The house felt smaller, not because anything had changed, just because I had. I sat in the dark kitchen, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. I could still smell Lily's soap on my sleeve. Something had shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, but final. She came in just after 10. The door closed softly, as if she was afraid to wake someone. No keys dropped, no sigh of shoes kicked off. Just the small hush of careful movement across the entry rug. I didn't move from the armchair. The light from the reading lamp cast a warm circle around me, but the rest of the house stayed dark. She paused when she saw me. Didn't think you'd still be up. Couldn't sleep. Her coat stayed on. She walked past me into the kitchen and I heard the faint clink of a glass. Water, probably. I didn't turn to look. The same silence followed her like a second shadow. Her phone rang. She didn't answer it there in the kitchen. I heard the sound of retreating steps, up the stairs, then the soft close of the bedroom door. Even that was careful. She didn't want to be heard. I sat for a while longer, listening to the night tick past. The fridge hummed. A branch tapped the window. Somewhere upstairs, her voice, low, urgent, not laughing. I couldn't hear the words, just the shape of her tone. It sounded like someone apologizing or promising something, but not to me. The lamp made everything feel staged. The armchair, the untouched cup of tea, the open book I hadn't really read. I turned it off. The next morning she was already in the kitchen when I came down. Hair pinned back, a sweater I didn't recognize. Toast, a second mug. She glanced up. You want coffee? Sure. She poured without comment, handed it over like a transaction. We sat. The kitchen was too bright. The toast popped. Lily said you went to Seattle. I nodded. Took a sip. You didn't say you were leaving. Didn't think I had to. She didn't answer. Just buttered her toast, slowly, like it required focus. Her movements were neat, practiced. Why now? She asked, not looking up. Why not? We ate in silence. It was the kind of breakfast where everything tastes flat. The kind where you know the day won't improve. She scrolled through her phone again, thumb flicking fast. I watched the way she held it, not carelessly, not openly, angled, cautious, as if she was still upstairs behind a door. Later that afternoon, I started boxing some things. Not to leave, not yet. Just to put space between myself and the life I'd been pretending was still intact. The garage smelled like old paint and dry leaves. I found a cardboard box near the shelves, shook it out, and brought it upstairs. In the bedroom, I opened the bottom drawer of my dresser. Sweaters, socks, a photo tucked between layers. Me and Margaret in Mexico. She wore that straw hat I'd bought her from a street vendor. She had laughed at how absurd it was, then worn it all day. I put it aside, face down. Books first, the ones on my side of the bed. A few shirts. The watch my father gave me. I wasn't thinking about departure, not really. More like rehearsal. She walked past the open door, paused. What are you doing? Clearing some space? Why? I shrugged. Didn't answer. She waited a beat, then walked on. I heard her closet open, hangers sliding, a drawer closing too hard. It was all so familiar and strange at once. The choreography of two people sharing walls, not life. That night she came home even later. She didn't explain. I didn't ask. From my side of the bed, I watched the ceiling. Her side creaked as she lay down. No good night, no brush of feet, just the sound of her phone again, glowing faintly in her hand like a secret she couldn't put down. I turned away and began, quietly, to disappear. Lily called around 11. Her voice was soft, but direct. You sound tired, Dad. Everything okay? I looked at the half-packed box on the floor. The sound of Margaret's shower hummed faintly through the walls. Just sorting some things, I said. Boxes? She asked, the pause behind her words sharp enough to be felt. I nodded before remembering she couldn't see me. Just clearing space. Are you and Mom? She started, then stopped. I heard the clink of her mug, probably coffee. Always coffee, even this late. "We're fine," I said, then added, "I just needed more room." She didn't buy it. "You don't clear space unless something's crowding you." I smiled at that. She always saw too much. "How's Seattle?" She let the diversion pass, but not before saying, "Don't disappear, okay?" "I won't." The line stayed open a moment longer before she sighed. "Love you, Dad." "Love you too, Lily." That night, Margaret came out of the bedroom in a dress I hadn't seen in a while. Green, soft at the edges, the kind she used to wear on our anniversaries. Her makeup was understated but precise. "Let's have dinner out," she said, not looking at me. Her earrings caught the hallway light. We hadn't gone out together in months. I studied her face, the lines at the corners of her mouth tighter than usual. There was effort in the suggestion, but no warmth. I nodded. "Okay." The restaurant was downtown, one we used to visit when Lily was little, after school plays and birthdays. The hostess remembered us. That surprised me more than Margaret's suggestion. We sat at a small corner table. Candlelight flickered, reflected in the glass of water I barely touched. Margaret looked around as if trying to remember something. Or maybe she wanted to avoid my face. She didn't ask about the boxes. I didn't offer. Menus came. We opened them in unison. Her nails were painted a color I didn't know. "They redid the place," she said, eyes scanning the room. "Looks smaller now." "Or we got older," I said. That made her glance at me for the first time. Briefly. She ordered salmon. I had the stew. We waited in silence. At the next table, a couple debated side dishes. The man mispronounced something. The woman corrected him gently. I watched Margaret watching them. She looked away when she noticed. When the food arrived, she picked at hers. I ate slowly. The wine she ordered stayed mostly full. "Lily called," I said after a while. She didn't ask what about, just nodded and took a sip of her wine. Her lip left a faint mark on the rim. "She said I sound tired." Margaret's fork paused, then moved again. "Are you?" "Maybe." Another silence, this one longer. The kind that grows roots. She pushed her salmon around the plate. "You've been quiet lately," she said finally. "I think I ran out of things to say." Her eyes lifted to meet mine. There it was, the first true look in weeks. I didn't blink. "I noticed the boxes," she said, voice even, not accusatory. "They're just things." "But why now?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have words, just none that would help. She set her fork down. "Is there someone else?" That made me laugh, gently. "No." She looked relieved and disappointed all at once. Her hands folded on the table. "Then what is it?" I took a long breath, felt the weight of the years between us. "It's not someone. It's everything." She looked like she wanted to argue, or cry, or leave. But she did none of those things. Instead, she said, "I never meant for it to be this way." "I know." The check came. She reached for it. I didn't stop her. On the drive home, we didn't speak. She looked out the window. I watched the red lights blink in the mirror. When we got home, she went straight to the bedroom. I stood in the hallway for a long moment, staring at the door. I didn't go in. I sat in the living room instead, near the box I'd packed. The clock ticked loud in the quiet. I didn't feel sad. Not then. Just still. The way water is before it decides which way to flow. She made scrambled eggs that morning. The smell came down the hallway slowly, almost hesitantly, like it wasn't sure it was welcome. "Coffee's on," she said when I walked in, without looking up. I nodded. The eggs were overdone, edges browned. She used to take pride in them. We ate at opposite ends of the table. Her fork tapped the plate once, then again, and I noticed she hadn't buttered the toast. "I thought I might work in the garden later," she said. I didn't answer. There was a time when that would have prompted a dozen questions from me. Which part? Want help? Is the hose still leaking? Now I just drank my coffee and watched the steam disappear. She cleared the plates before I finished eating. I let her. By mid-morning, I was in the shed, moving aside the old stepladder and a folded tarp that still smelled like varnish. The box was where I remembered, second shelf behind a stack of empty planters. It was labeled Lake House 1986 in her handwriting. Thinner then, taller loops. I didn't open it right away. I brought it to the bench, dusted it off, and sat there for a while with my hands resting on the cardboard lid. When I finally opened it, the first photo I pulled out was of Lily, maybe 5 years old, in a yellow life jacket too big for her. Margaret was in the background, smiling with her sunglasses on her head and a freckle near her temple that she used to complain about. The second photo was of us, me in a striped shirt, sunburned. She had her arm through mine, a glass of wine in her hand, and she was looking up at me mid-laugh. Someone else must have taken it. Probably Lily. I sat there with that picture in my hand for a long time. The shed was quiet. The dust in the air moved slow, soft, like it didn't want to land. I didn't cry. I didn't feel nostalgic even. Just still. Like those years belonged to someone else, but I could still visit them if I needed to remember how it felt to be known. I found an old notepad in the drawer beneath the bench. The top sheet had a faded shopping list: vinegar, light bulbs, sardines. I turned to a fresh page. The pen stuttered on the first few strokes. I didn't write much, just, we were something. Now we are something else. I'm not angry, just empty. And even emptiness can be full of quiet things. I folded the note once, then again, slid it into the box, and closed the lid. I put the box back on the shelf. Not hidden, not displayed, just there. That afternoon, Margaret asked if I wanted to go for a walk. I told her no, thanks. Her shoulders dropped a little, and she turned back toward the kitchen. I heard her rearranging cups in the cabinet, one at a time, like they were the only things she could still organize. That evening, I made a simple dinner, just soup and toast. She didn't ask why. We ate it in front of the television. The news played. Neither of us watched. When she went to bed, she left the door open. I stayed in the den. The clock on the wall ticked a little louder than usual. Around midnight, I went out to the shed one last time. Not for the box, just to stand in that space. It smelled like pine and old rain. My breath fogged in the cold air. For a moment, I closed my eyes and imagined the lake, the pier, Lily's laugh, Margaret's hand on mine. But the moment passed. I opened my eyes. The shed was a shed again. Nothing more. I went back in, turned off the porch light. The house creaked once like it was settling into its own silence. I let it. Margaret didn't ask about the shed. She never mentioned the old photo box or the small folded note. But something in her movements changed the next morning. She didn't hum while scrambling the eggs. She didn't call his name to say breakfast was ready. She just set the plate on the table and returned to the sink, back turned. Thomas noticed, but said nothing. He didn't reach for the salt. Just ate. Quietly. The house seemed louder than usual, or maybe quieter in a way that called attention to itself. The clink of his fork, the soft rattle of the refrigerator cycling on, the creak of the old chair he always said he'd fix. She left the coffee pot half full. That was new. Around 10, Thomas pulled on his jacket, the same brown canvas one he'd worn for years. He stepped into his walking shoes by the back door and paused, out of habit, not hesitation. "I'll be out a bit," he said. Margaret, drying a dish, didn't turn. "Okay." He walked. past the mailbox and the same patch of uneven sidewalk that had cracked in last winter's freeze, past the jacaranda tree with its curling purple flowers already beginning to fall, past the Weaver house where the dog barked without conviction. He didn't know exactly where he was going until his feet took him to the lake. It was a small thing, really, just a body of water tucked behind a thin line of trees. But they used to come here, he and Margaret, and Lily when she was little, with crackers in a plastic bag and juice boxes. Margaret used to call it their secret picnic spot. Of course, every family in town probably had their own secret spot by the same lake, but they'd claimed it for themselves back then. Thomas found the old bench still there, more weathered now. He sat. There was a slight breeze, enough to ripple the water. Ducks clustered on the far end. One flapped its wings like it wanted attention, then gave up and settled again. He sat a long time. The note he'd written the day before remained in the shed, inside the lid of the photo box. He'd tucked it there after all, not to be hidden, but not to be announced either. He thought of Lily, of the time she fell into the water and came up laughing, soaked through, teeth chattering, but refusing to leave. "Again!" she'd shouted, though Margaret had wrapped her in 2 towels and declared the outing over. He could almost hear her laugh now. Memory laughter. Not real, but close. Margaret used to laugh too, a quiet, nose-wrinkling laugh she saved for private things, bad TV shows, his attempts at singing Sinatra while shaving, the time he tried to fix the bathroom sink and ended up flooding the hall. He hadn't heard that laugh in years. A jogger passed behind him, earbuds in, oblivious. The lake lapped gently at the shore. A bird called out once, then went quiet. Thomas breathed in through his nose, let the air settle deep. He didn't feel grief. He didn't feel freedom, just the gentle click of something finishing. Not snapping, not breaking, just ending. When he returned home, the kitchen was clean. The breakfast plates gone, the counter wiped. Margaret was outside pruning the hydrangeas, her back to him. He didn't interrupt, just slipped inside, removed his shoes, hung up the jacket. In the hallway, their wedding photo hung slightly crooked. He straightened it, not sentimentally, just because it was crooked. That evening, they watched a rerun of an old show they used to love. No laughter, no commentary, just the soft flicker of the TV and the light glow it cast on their separate faces. When it ended, Margaret turned off the set and stood. "Night," she said, pausing only briefly before heading to bed. Thomas stayed a little longer. He wasn't waiting for anything, just sitting, watching the last of the day disappear through the living room window. Eventually he stood, turned off the lamp, and followed the silence down the hallway.